All right, excited to have this guest back on the podcast. You know him from Ion College Basketball Podcast, CBS Sports. It's Matt Norlander. Matt, welcome back to the podcast.
Jared, it's a pleasure to be back. This is overdue, but I will tell you, it's funny how things work out sometimes because we have trying to make this happen for a while, and then just things get in the way, and then lo and behold, we wind up getting it now after
Yeah.
the whole Hurley saga, and then this is on the heels of him meeting with the media and doing a little bit of a media tour here. So I'm happy to divulge all this kind of stuff because I unexpectedly got Hurley for basically an hour today. And so, yeah, I'm ready to rock and roll, bud.
Yeah, we'll dive into it. What's funny, I was looking the last time you were on the podcast, it was June 2019, almost to the date today.
Wow. It has been
And,
5 years.
yeah,
I'm atrocious for that. That's terrible. Wow.
and I had you on because we were talking about UConn just having announced that it was going to be going to the Big East. So we think back
Yeah.
to 5 years ago where things were to where they are today. And I don't think any UConn fan in their wildest imaginations
Yeah.
could have pictured, that we were going from talking about this team being back in the Big East
Man.
and rejoining that to coming off back-to-back titles here and their coach being a candidate for the Lakers.
That is so I remember that saga because that story broke when I was covering the Travelers,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
which is the golf tournament here in Connecticut. Obviously, your Connecticut-based audience is going to almost certainly know that, and so that was wild. And oh man, thinking back to that, it honestly that feels like more than 5 years ago to me. That
Yeah.
feels like, but it doesn't feel like it's been 5 years since I've been on the show. It's funny how time and our perceptions work. But and now look at everything that has happened since. I mean, they get
Yeah.
in back into the Big East. I am a believer that UConn, even if it had, and it did have Hurley, outside the Big East, if they'd never gone back to the Big East, I am a believer that they would not have won back-to-back national championships just because of a function of the scheduling
Mhm.
and the Big East allowing them to be better seated and all this kind of stuff. So looking back now, 5 years removed from that epic decision, and oh, by the way, I don't know when it's going to get announced. And the Athletic, Andrew Marchand had some reporting on this earlier. I kind of dropped a nugget on HQ this week as well. I think everything with that media deal is done with Fox, and now you're hearing stuff about TNT. I think there's stuff that has to get ironed out. Anyway, I bring that up to say this time around that media deal is getting done, and UConn's in the Big East. It wasn't in the Big East the last time, so the expectation is a healthy and fair rise in how much these schools and the conference will get paid on an annual basis, and UConn's inclusion, not just from the men's side, but obviously women's basketball being more valuable now and an increasing product, and UConn being, the most well-known program in the sport on that end of it is also very helpful. So yeah, a ton has changed in only 5 years time. And now UConn is the king of the Big East and is the king of the sport and set up to become a preseason top five team.
And I guess now we'll just have to wait. The next time you come on, we'll be breaking down which corporate sponsor has bought the naming rights to the Big East, and we'll go from there. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
but Matt, I want to talk just as we're kind of looking at things from a higher level here, from when you were last on. What's impressed you the most about what Dan Hurley has been able to do at UConn since you were on 5 years ago, as he's really built this program back to really being on top of the sport right now?
You're really laying it on thick, by the way, with the since you were last on 5 years ago. I vow to you, I will be back on before 2029.
There we go.
Big picture, what has impressed me most? Um, hmm. I think I want to give like a real consideration to this question and give you not just like a stock answer. Because the winning the back-to-back titles is the answer, but I'm trying to go deeper than just the actual accomplishment there. Um, I would say Hurley has been able to mold a blue blood program, and I would say turn a high level program into a blue blood program. Okay. I think it required a national championship with a third different coach in less than 25 years. The first one, obviously, they got under her. I think it actually required that in order for qualification into entry into the club. There was a time when Duke wasn't a blue blood program, and then essentially when it won back-to-back titles under Mike Krzyzewski, it got into that, just as now UConn is there. So first of all, he had to get it to that point, and now that he's there, he has been able to run a program in his image and get players to I understand what I'm about to say. If you listen to it, and if you're just a casual fan, like it kind of just rolls right off the shoulder. But I'm telling you, if you talk to coaches, this is so much harder than what Hurley makes it look like. He gets players in his image to buy in, to be unselfish, and for the most part, as far as I can tell, although every locker room and every program has its secrets, and they've been winning, so this also helps. It's working. They are buying what he is selling, and what he is selling is the genuine article. He is not overpromising and recruiting. He is telling you what you will get when you come to play at UConn and how much you'll have to work in order to get it. It is absolutely not for everyone. In fact, if you're a diehard UConn fan listening to this podcast, you are aware of the fact that it hasn't been just my reporting. There's been quotes over the past couple of years where there was a point where Tristan Newton was just a different kind of guy, and they brought him from East Carolina, and they thought, well, maybe this is just not working. And then Hurley came around and the staff came around saying, no, here's the thing. Like, we don't need 13 guys to absolutely, march to the beat of our drum. And we should embrace how he is different. And it was because that they let him be him and be different in the way that he carried himself and comported himself that actually further enhanced UConn's ceiling. So I would say the fact that Hurley's healthy ego, and the way that he runs a program, it would be easy for it to be up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And for a bit, you can say it was. They had big wins. They failed in the NCAA tournament. And now in 26 months' time, they've gone from a program that hadn't proven it under Hurley in the NCAA tournament to now he's the best coach running the best program in the sport. And so the way that he has navigated that and seemingly will continue to do so is ultra impressive to me, because it would be easy to see how it could be tougher than it has been. And now everyone's all in, and rightfully so. The model works, and they're coming off of 2 NCAA tournament championships where it's stupid how easy they made it look.
Yeah.
It's outrageous. And at least I get the sense that fans of college basketball were able, particularly because they won back-to-back, to understand what we were seeing in real time. Because I guarantee you, as many said that night and wrote that night and the day after and podcasted after, I guarantee you we will look back 20 years from now and rightfully regard this UConn run, even though they were 2 different rosters, they will be lumped as one.
Yeah.
But as an elite program performing on a level that is, right there with only 5 or 6 other teams / programs over the past 40 years. It's insane.
Yeah, no, really isn't. And I think a lot of what you just mentioned is why an NBA franchise is storied as the Los Angeles Lakers were interested in bringing Dan Hurley aboard. So let's talk about that a little bit and dive into what you wrote about, what your conversation with him was like. I know from listening to you over the weekend as we were getting closer to his decision, I think most UConn fans, myself, waffled and flipped and flopped on what we thought he was going to do a number of times. Take me through your thought process from when you first heard the news to as the weekend went along, how you kind of rode that roller coaster of emotion and thought of what might happen.
Yeah, I was surprised by the news. I think most people were surprised by the news, obviously. I edited my story a little bit just because there was a lot there. Like Dan and I talked about a lot. So it kind of the way if you read the Q&A, like it kind of jumps right in. We had a preamble and it just didn't read right. But what he had told me was, so we're recording this on Thursday, June 13th, which reminds me, it's my brother's birthday and I have to FaceTime him after this.
Happy
I still
birthday.
haven't done it. So, I got to get that in before the buzzer. So he was approached by his agent last Monday. The story broke, I want to say early Wednesday morning.
Yeah, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday morning.
So he first got approached on it Monday and, kind of took him aback, obviously. And then he even said to assembled media in stores today that Andrea Hurley was like overcome with emotion and angry or something. Your classic response. Anyway, and it was a weird story from the start because his name wasn't rumored. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes when a coach is up to maybe be interviewed or targeted for another job in college or the NBA, sometimes you will hear enough scuttlebutt before word surfaces publicly. Yeah. That was not the case here whatsoever. It came like a bolt of the blue. And so initially I thought, I had credence because of who reported it, Adrian Wojnarowski, who's known the Hurleys and been friends with the family for decades. So that made me think, okay, this is actually real, that they are targeting him, but I couldn't help but notice that Woj's reporting was worded intentionally and that they were prepared to offer him, and like it had not reached the stage where they had met him
Yeah.
and that he had an offer on the table. They were gearing up. And that kind of framing of reporting you don't get often, but it showed through Woj's sourcing, I guess particularly connected to the LA side, just how heavy they were getting ready to make a pitch, which made it weird that it was like this public. And
Yeah.
Dan and I talked about that as well in my interview. Um, I was always leaning slightly to him leaving for the Lakers job because it was the Lakers job. And
Mhm.
then in talking to people around both levels of basketball, I would say it was a 60-40 he'll leave for the Lakers, but talking to people connected to UConn, it was 60-40 hopeful he will stay. And Dan did a very good job at talking to a lot of people, but really keeping this decision close to the vest because he also
Yeah.
didn't decide till Sunday. So it's not like you could have found him at the Billy Joel concert and pinned him down and threatened his life and be like, "What are you going to do?" He wouldn't have able, and he might have given you an answer under pressure there, but
Yeah.
he did not decide by that point. And I I went on HQ Monday morning when I had to do a hit, and then the last thing was the host asked me, "What do you think he's going to do?" I was like, oh, "You're going to really put me on the spot." So in that moment, because I had waffled on
Yeah.
Sunday, I had thought he was going to stay, and then we got to Monday, and there was no noise. I was like, "We don't have anything. If he was staying, we wouldn't have a crumb. We don't have anything." And so I started thinking like, "Hmm, why not?" So I was like, "All right, maybe." So I leaning that he was leaving, and then about 20 minutes, and I have the text message just to prove it. But 20 minutes before, I was texting with some media buds, and I was like, "All right, last chance on the record. What do we have here?" And I said, "I'm saying he's staying. There's just enough of a vibe." And it was like right at that time when Dama More tweeted that Andrea showed up, and I was like, "Oh, okay. She's showing up to tell them they're leaving." And so there you go. It's a win for UConn. It's a win for college basketball. I think he genuinely wrestled with the decision. I think one of the biggest takeaways from my piece, and I know at least I would think he talked about it with assembled media. I didn't listen to his gaggle. Caravan coming back, which I maintained was a bigger deal as we went through this process and people were giving credit for. He did say that was big. It was big enough to where Hurley probably may have called. I mean, he told me he only called a few people. So let's say it was like 6 people
Yeah.
on Sunday. And those people were probably only his direct family, his agent, maybe one last call to like a Billy Donovan, and then Alex Caravan. He wanted to talk to him. He didn't have a decision there. Uh, I believe when they hung up the phone, Hurley was leaning toward coming back, but not fully decided. Soon thereafter that night on Sunday, he told me he decided, went to bed with the decision, and then just reaffirmed that once he woke up on Monday morning. But it was very interesting in that this was one of those job searches that was playing out publicly. Not just that we knew a high profile coach was being targeted for a job, we knew the cadence of when he was meeting with the team, when he was leaving. Then you had the reveal of him being at the Billy Joel concert, which only upped the curiosity. And I absolutely had to ask Hurley about all of that. You can read all of that in the story. I asked him about Luke Murray's Instagram video. His wife also had an Instagram video. Apparently, there was two others. There was a friend there that posted something that, unless you were the most insane UConn fan, you wouldn't have found. And he didn't think anything of it. He hadn't made his decision. And then soon thereafter, they realized, oh, okay, the UConn fan base is reading a lot into it, as they
Yeah.
should.
Yeah. That's what
As they
they
should.
do.
He's wearing a New York shirt. He's like, "What do you want from me?" It was $70. And now it's like my favorite t-shirt. I'm going to wear it. I'm like, I get it, but you understand, like, if you had gone to the Lakers after the fact, that would have been a twist of the knife
Yeah.
because everyone's looking for anything. And here you are at Store South watching Long Island's own Billy Joel. So it was a wild ride with all of that. But I know I'm rambling a bit here, but
Yeah.
I did waffle. And up until probably I guess 30 minutes before Woj broke it, I was leaning that he was going. And then something just told me. And then I had gotten a signal. Like, I don't want to overstate this, but just like one little crumb where I was like, all right, if he goes right now, like this is going to be pretty devastating. I think he's sticking around. And lo and behold, he is. And it's a huge win. And what a weird week this was, Jared. I mean, who knows what the future holds? Will we be talking about a new UConn coach a year from now? or not, or will he be here 10, 12 years? And we can get to that in a second if you want.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
regardless of what the future holds, we'll look back on this as just like, remember that time like Dan Hurley really almost went to the Lakers? Like
Yeah,
he
it's a
he had the world thing. It was just wild.
no crazy week when you think about everything that went into it. Summer is here, and if you want to be champion of the grill, make sure you're serving the best hot dogs around. I'm talking about Martin Roastals. Our friends in New Britain have been making their small batch gourmet hot dogs for 4 generations using Martin's original recipes from 1928. So if you want to dominate your cookouts, just like the Huskies dominated the tournament, be sure to grab some Roastal dogs at your local grocery store or pay a visit to their retail store on Grove Street in New Britain. As always, go support a UConn fan-owned business. And now, back to the episode. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this because I think in both what Dan said to you and what he said today in the press conference in his remarks have been that he picked UConn. It wasn't that he necessarily turned down the Lakers, but he picked to stay at UConn. I feel like a lot of the narrative out there has been Lakers are embarrassed. They couldn't get this college coach. Hurley turns them down. They made him a big deal. Do you think that the Lakers would you say the Lakers were embarrassed by this? Because it seems like it really was a move where he had two good options on the table and he chose the one that he was personally more comfortable and more interested in, and that was staying here at UConn.
How could the Lakers not be embarrassed? And maybe we will one day get the answer to that publicly if like Rob Pelinka writes a book or Jeannie Buss or something. But come on, man. The Lakers, like, and some of this is how NBA reporting works, I guess, but like Woj put it out there. Like, and part of this was like the Woj versus Sham. Sham said JJ
Yeah.
Redick, and now he might be the front. There's a whole other side to this, like inside media that we don't need to side, but it's crazy. And so they were so baldly out there, you know, Hurley is the number one pick. Woj reporting that it had been for weeks, which if that's the case, like why did it take them so
So
long?
long. Yeah.
Very odd. And then it's the Lakers and it's the head coach of a blue blood program who's the best coach in his sport. It becomes like the story in sports over the NBA finals. And I would argue it managed to go stride for stride with Caitlin Clark. And it becomes this a highly publicized, eagerly anticipated thing.
Yeah.
And how were the Lakers not embarrassed by this? You're the Lakers, and your coaching decisions over the past decade plus since you lost Phil Jackson, with the exception of the bubble championship, but even that ended weirdly. They've been disasters, and now you have a college coach turning you down, and then you had the offer come out that it's not a bad offer. It's just not a make me Godfather offer. Like you did not go after him and try and make him more highly paid than Monty Williams. Say what you want about the Monty Williams deal and all this stuff, but like you couldn't get him to 90 million. Not even like so yes, I do think he picked UConn over the Lakers. And I'm not convinced if it was 6 years and 80 million that he wouldn't have said yes, or 85 million. Maybe he would have, maybe he would not have. But ultimately, I do think he picked UConn over the Lakers, saying yes to UConn more than saying no to the Lakers. But Lakers are taking some strays here. And no matter who becomes the coach there in La La Land, it will be a juxtaposition with what Hurley does moving forward here, and what they have there in the winter of LeBron James's career.
Yeah. So going through this whole process, it seems like, and I want to try to, I have it here. I want to pull it up to read because you asked him straight up, is this something, that's in your future going to the NBA?
Mm-hmm.
And he gave you the maybe or maybe not. He said maybe
read it directly. Yeah, read it. Give it. This
yeah.
is the last thing in the story, and it might be. It might be the best quote he gave me in my opinion.
No, and all right, that's what I've screenshotted here. So let me read it. So you say that's what I'm getting at. Maybe that's something that's in the future at a spot that's better suited to you. And he says, yeah, maybe or maybe not. Maybe I don't ever do it. I don't have in all caps there. I like to do that to fulfill myself. In the end, I love coaching and I also love control. And as whiny as everybody is about the state of college basketball, like it's not that bad. I mean, it's not great, but it's not like it once was. But hopefully you get a little better leadership and a little more structure and things can settle down a little bit. But at the end of the day, I get to coach 18 and 19-year-old kids and you can make an impact. I'll go sit at the draft in 10 days with people whose lives you help change. That to me matters a lot. Once the money and the ego and all that stuff is out, I love coaching. I love to run a program. That's what's important to me. And I thought it was you mentioned that's the last thing. I thought that was probably the most interesting quote from the piece. What did you leave from that, gut feeling of is he done with the NBA? Is it still something on the horizon?
I don't think he's necessarily done with the NBA because the NBA is not done with him.
Mhm.
I said on the Thursday pod for CBS that I do believe that we will be right back here in a year in terms of here are the NBA jobs that are opening. Dan Hurley will be a default candidate. The Lakers situation has now kicked the door open on Hurley being a name that will just be defaulted at. Not every job. He's not going to go live in Portland, Oregon. He's not going to go coach. I mean, he's not going to co-coach the Utah Jazz. He's not going to go coach the Memphis Grizzlies. But if there's a NBA job on an Eastern time zone that is reasonable, yes, it's going to be something that comes up. But I do think, and I think he gave me this because also like he's made his Lakers decision. Now he's looking forward to next season. So now he's all in on college. But I think there is a distinct chance, and what a gift this would be to college if it happened, where he just doesn't leave.
Yeah.
And maybe he's 51.
Well, yeah.
He's 51. What if he's getting paid well and he'll have a new contract publicly announced. I actually wonder if this accelerates that. I don't know if it will or it won't. Some of this is a state university process, but
Yeah.
like it should have been done already. It's not. Let's get on with it here. My opinion is that had they gotten on with it before,
This one.
that this wouldn't have been a thing, period. But whatever. So for whatever reason, UConn dragged it out. And if you had, I don't know, if you had managed to get the guy a new deal by the end of April after the Kentucky fiasco, I don't even think we get to the Lakers prospect, but whatever. That happened. And so here we are. But let's say, I mean, he's paid handsomely. It's going to be, I was told north of 8 million, not told by Hurley, just so we're clear on that. In
Yeah.
fact, Hurley and I never talked figures, but I think he will be paid north of $8 million dollars annually. So he's paid healthily. The point I'm making is this. Let's say he does this for 5 or 6 more years. For whatever reason, the timing's never good. Missoula is always good at the Celtics. The Nets get it going. Thibodeau goes like another 4 years with the Knicks. And then we look up, he's like 55, 56. Do I want to do it? And what if he's just made all the money he wants to make? And by 57, he's done coaching. He loves the game. We'll see. But he doesn't want to deal with whatever college athletics looks like in 2030 and says, I'll just retire. He'll have any TV job that he wants, basically covering college basketball. So that could very well be the case. Like he could be a UConn coach until the day he decides to stop coaching, whether that's 4 years from now or 14 years from now. I think UConn fans should be encouraged by that, but also you need to be at the ready. It would take UConn taking a precipitous dip, which doesn't seem possible. Anything's possible, but it's hard to imagine now that they're rolling at this level. He's going to only get better in recruiting. He's got the best staff in the sport. Eventually, he will lose some of those assistants, but then when you're him and you're still doing this, like you're going to be able to have your pick of the best assistants. Hard to envision why UConn at minimum isn't a top 25 program with a single digit next to its name in the NCAA tournament and going at least to the second weekend more years than not. That just feels like what it should be doing moving forward. But again, nothing is promised. You can look around at blue blood programs left and right. Everyone has their dips, but he'll still be called. There are still going to be people that look into him because of the offense that he runs, and Luke Murray gets a ton of credit for that as well, because he's as responsible for it as anyone there. Kamani has been running the defense, and I've always appreciated how Dan has, in particular, made it a point to point out the strategies and the X and O stuff that Kamani and Luke have been responsible for. And then Tom Moore has been the guy who's basically running the NIL for UConn, and that's been a big factor, will continue to be a huge factor. And you never let a good opportunity pass you by because of all of this. I'm sure the UConn fans, I just know because I have friends who are UConn fans. I live in Connecticut, and they are all the more rallied and incentivized to give to the NIL fund to help with the issue moving forward. Because let's be honest, like UConn is not financially in an advantageous spot in relation to other programs and power leagues that have football to depend on. It's just so they will have to quote unquote overcome that. And fortunately, they have just the guy still there to help them do it.
Yeah. I do want to ask this, and this is somewhat selfishly because I don't know if you know this, but throughout the season, Alex Caravan comes on here a couple times a month.
I'm aware that I am podcasting in the grand shadow of Alex Caravan. Yes.
Yeah. So we're going to be doing a little bit of an emergency episode over the weekend, a little off-season content. Take me through what you got from that relationship between him and Dan Hurley, from what you were talking about with him today, because I mean, just from my perspective, with Alex coming back, it seemed like it would have been a really hard move for Dan to then turn around and walk out the door after he worked with Alex, was coaching him up in terms of his decision-making process. It seemed like that would have been a
Mm.
really tough spot. What did you get from your
Yeah.
conversation with him about that?
Such a tough spot. I'll even go beyond the conversation. And I don't know Alex that well. I've had a couple of, I first talked to Alex. He wouldn't remember this, but I talked to him when he was a recruit. I saw him at Peach Jam, didn't know who he was. And he played, there was this like super competitive game in one of the side gyms at Peach Jam, which side gym isn't like no one was there.
Yeah.
They were there. They just weren't in the main gym. And he either took a big shot and made it at the end, or he had the ball in his hand on the shot in the corner. And I was like, who is this guy? Like, because he was in a game with a lot of other highly rated prospects. I was like, I saw him play and I was like, he seems to me someone like that will be a 4-year stud. And by the time like he's a senior, he'll be an All-American. Look at lo and behold, I got one right.
Yeah.
Every blind squirrel finds a nut. So anyway, I just bring that up to say, I remember seeing him as a recruit and I didn't know who he was. And damn, if he doesn't fit UConn's mold. And he has always seemed to me to be such a, and I know you know this and your podcast audience knows as well, but I might as well reinforce it. Very thoughtful, intelligent, smart, great teammate, and one of those guys who, and I say this from the outside looking in, but I hear coaches talk about it a lot, and I haven't had too many conversations with the UConn staff on it, but I feel it. You are so appreciative that you have someone like him in your life and in your program, in your locker room, because he makes the situation better. He is someone who brings people together. And with that as backdrop, he had a chance to go in the NBA. I have said this multiple times. I firmly believe Alex Karaban would have been drafted.
Mhm.
Now, the tricky part is, does he get taken 48th? And if you get taken 48th, and then you're spending most of your season next season in the G League because maybe it's just a spot you get taken to, it's just going to take time. Whereas if you come back and you actually are the guy on a team that, even if you don't win a championship, on a team that, is a 2 seed and makes another deep run, like it's only going to help his cause. To me, he was one of the few players that was a 50-50 choice of actual consequence.
For sure.
We don't get a lot of them in college. He was one of them. And for him to come back and to do that and what it meant, see, the timeline's nuts. He does this without no one knows that the
Yeah.
Lakers are coming. Nobody
Right.
has any idea. Okay. So he does this without anyone knowing. And I just get the sense that Caravan's bond with the entire staff is significant, but with Dan, and it's just it means something deep and significant. This is my opinion,
Yeah.
having talked to Hurley. I think Caravan's decision to come back to UConn, was among the 4 or 5 most significant factors in him deciding to return. I really think it ranks that high. He probably considered 27 different things, right? But I think Caravan coming back, he cares about all the players, but he's the returning starter from the national championship team. He's the connective tissue. And so with Caravan having no real out, yeah, he could have transferred. Come on. He felt, he felt a debt there, and understandably so. And I think that will be a massive part of the narrative of UConn next season. And if Caravan is able to emerge, he'll be a preseason All-American. He should be,
Yeah.
but he's going to have to prove that as well. Can he emerge and do that and be the face of this UConn program, and kind of guide the talent around him? That will be a very interesting thing. I do believe that mentally he is absolutely up for the challenge. We'll see if he can make it happen with the team.
Yeah, I'm going to dive into this a little bit more with him on over the weekend when we record. So I appreciate the thoughts there. Where do you think Alex Karaban and his return rank when you talk about those decision factors, above or below the med student who bumped into Dan Hurley in the hotel?
That's wild. I'll be quick on this, but do go read the anecdote, because
Yeah,
Hurley
read it.
took me to a couple places that I was not expecting. And then one of them being he's at the hotel in LA getting in a cardio workout, I guess, before, like, he flies on Thursday night, lands, he's up early before he goes and meets the Lakers, whatever time that was, he gets a cardio workout in, and then he's rounding the corner from the gym to go back to his hotel or whatever, damn near bumps into a young woman. They make eye contact. They keep walking. And then she doubles back around a few seconds later and is like, wait a second. I know why you're here. I'm a UConn student. I'm a med student right now. I'm only here because I'm in a wedding. You can't go. Please don't go. And And some of some of the stuff you can read, like you can read
Yeah.
Hurley's words in the
Read it.
story
Yeah.
and you get it. But like to hear him tell that story and tell it back between that and then randomly running into a friend at after the Billy Joel concert, like outside the Garden, out of nowhere. Um, yeah, he was getting these signals from the universe, and it was just one more thing in UConn's favor to get him to
Yeah.
return. But that's insane. An
It
active
is.
student that's a med student.
It really
Someone's
is.
got to say, Jared, you need to find out who this is.
I'm on the case.
Okay.
I think I have a connection, so stay tuned, everyone.
Okay, stay tuned. Got to find out who it is
Yeah.
and the details on that wedding. But that was insane. That of all the hotels and all the world and all that good stuff, there was a UConn student that was there, and
Yeah.
this anonymous hero that may have helped sway the decision. Pretty wild.
I've got some rapid fire ones here
Let's
for you
go. Let's
to
go.
end things. Returner outside of Alex, you're most excited about seeing their progress from the offseason to next season on this team.
On UConn,
Yeah.
let me bring up the roster because I don't have an immediate answer for you. Oh, you know what I do? It's Solomon Ball.
Okay.
I want to see if, and I know there's like some intrigue with Stewart. I want to see if Solo Ball becomes like a dude relatively quickly. I kind of feel like they need him to.
Yeah.
And let's see if he's ready for the bright lights. He is the answer for me for sure.
All right. How low are you going to rank this team in your preseason rankings to give Dan some motivation?
I may do it just to give Dan motivation.
Got to put him
We
like
talk,
17th or something. Like
I had him
something random.
13th last year. Hurley and I talked about this when we talked today because he was trying to sell me, as he should, on putting UConn number one. First of all, I'm not doing this until October, but he's already on my ass to rank UConn number one. I'll be intrigued if UConn does actually get ranked number one in the AP poll. I'm going to say it won't be. So they'll have proper motivation there. Also, you lost 4 starters off a national championship winning team. And I get it. You lost starters the year before. I would argue you're losing more year over year, this year to next. To answer your question, as I told Mr. Hurley, it is a guarantee, a mortal lock. I will have UConn in the top 5, which I did not a year ago. And I will give UConn serious consideration to number one. Let's just see how everything settles and knock on wood. Hopefully there's no injuries. And that was all, another part of it when we were getting into I was like, Dan, I believe that you can win a 3rd title in a row, but can we acknowledge how insane this is that we're talking about it being a possibility? The only person that's ever done it is John Wooden before the 64 team, 68 team tournament. It's insane. This is going to be so hard to do. It's going to be so hard to do. But
it really is.
I say this belovedly. He's a psycho and he absolutely believes it to be possible and will try to will it into existence. And I can't wait to cover it and see the journey and how it unfolds. So they will be in the top 5, as high as 1, as low as 5, or somewhere in between, but I have not yet decided.
All right. Speaking of rankings, we talked a little Billy Joel concert. I know you're a music guy. I need your top 3 Billy Joel.
You need my top 3. Well, I gave number 1 is New York State of Mind.
Right.
I gave that on the recent CBS pod. I'm not a huge, I do enjoy Billy Joel, but I'm not a huge Billy Joel fan.
Right.
I'm an Elton John fan over Billy Joel. I would say You May Be Right is up there.
Yeah, that's solid.
And then back in the day when I played gigs in a band, we actually did cover Only the Good Die Young, but that would definitely not be in my top 10. I would go Scenes is
that's my top.
it is such a good song. It is a cliche, but it is such a well-crafted piece of songwriting that I kind of can't not put it there. The Stranger, you know what? I would say take out You May Be Right and put The Stranger in. I think that's top 3. Yeah.
All right, pretty solid. My one thing I was going to be nervous is if Billy Joel, he usually pulls out a deep cut or two at these MSG shows. And I'm like, just please don't play Los Angeles Saturday night. I think that would have thrown everyone into a tizzy if that one really
I really wanted to when I talked with them. I wanted to get more into the songs and what he saw, but as the conversation was flowing, I didn't know how much time I had. Just trust me, I would have totally gone off on that, but we'll save that for another time there. But he didn't know who Trey Anastasio was, which was not a surprise. I gave him a little bit. I didn't include that in the transcript, but I gave him a little bit more context on all of that stuff. Not a Fish guy, although Fish playing in Mohegan.
Yeah. 2 nights, is it?
2 nights, and I think we need to get Dan Hurley there. Although I don't know if it interferes with the live schedule. I haven't cross-referenced that,
All
so
right.
we gotta see if we can make that happen there. But yeah,
Yeah.
just the fact that last thing he told me he was not missing that concert no matter what, and by that you can read it in the copy, but like to hear his voice. If the Lakers asked him to interview on Saturday, he was not doing it. He would have pushed it off. He was not missing Billy Joel again, which to me gives you the answer that we had even
Yeah.
before he made the decision.
Yeah, no, I know they don't quite hype up like the Midnight Madness stuff again, but we got to get Billy Joel a Gamble. I think it is ultimately what
Good
needs to
luck.
happen now.
Good luck.
But Matt, I really want to thank you for coming on. I appreciate you taking some time. This worked out really nicely in terms of timing. Great off the piece. Highly recommended to everyone out there who's listening or watching. Go check out the piece. Lots of great quotes in there. So Matt, appreciate it and hope to have you back on soon.
Before 2029, Jared, my pleasure. Appreciate you so much, and see you on down the road, buddy.